This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 32 for Thursday, January 21st, 2016. As always, I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, joined by Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin in the PETM Podcast studio. What's happening, man?
We're back in studio. We've done this thing now. We're working on number 32, and I still have not really come up with something interesting to say when you ask me that. And I don't know why. I think you put
I'm
just
doing
like
okay,
the initial.
Rusty.
It's the initial nervousness of going ahead and getting the show going. Like I always have that kind of precipice of nervousness or anxiety that I cannot get over. So I just kind of start talking, and then hopefully I get to a spot where I say something meaningful.
Right. Well, I can't blame you for that because I have it written down right here. PETM Racing Podcast, episode 32, Thursday, January 21st, 2016. And then that's when I start fumbling. If you remember, I'm like, I am Tailgate Mayor?
Like, who am I again? I'm not even sure. At pre-game, I'm not
Something
sure.
like that. What you drinking on today, man?
Well, okay, so I made another delicious one of these.
Well, I'll say this, actually. I'll tell everybody what I'm drinking on. It is whatever Sherwin walked in here with because he made me a drink. So appreciate you.
So I went downstairs and made a couple drinks and brought it back up to the podcast studio. And if you notice, I selected like-for-like brands
well done.
of Monogram glasses.
Well done. From Red Brick Brewery where we
Red
were
Brick,
at
right
last
here.
week. And the hat.
Delicious beer. So what I made is not something new. It's the Wild Turkey with a little bit of roses, lime juice, and tonic.
Beautiful. It's very tasty.
It is pretty tasty.
And it's pretty potent. That's the WT 101 that we talked
Oh, yeah,
about.
I don't go anywhere near the 80 proof.
No,
that's
none of that.
not having it.
Watered down till it tastes like tea.
I was raised on the dairy. Or
you know where that's
the
from.
Wild Turkey 101.
Yeah,
That's
look
Will
that one up.
Sasso, by the way. Cool, funny guy.
So you got us some new tchotchkes, man. So we got the PETM podcast koozie. We got the PETM podcast
right.
studio. We've even got the custom drawing for our avatar. You got us something new. Tell us about this.
Well,
And it's BA, y'all.
so
This is
through
cool
our
as
interaction
crap.
with a really cool guy that we've shouted out a couple times, it's at USMC Kenny SGT, and that's United States Marine Corps Sergeant Kenny Smith, who is a racer, a NASCAR fan, and is also has a drive to raise money for soldiers and veterans, same thing, that are fighting PTS. And I leave the D off because of how many veterans I've heard on Joe Rogan or somebody else's podcast say, we don't like the disorder part. Post-traumatic stress is enough to describe how awful that psycho situation is.
Yeah.
And it's not psycho like, oh my God, crazy. It's like what you brain,
Yeah, what the brain's
the kind
going
of
through.
craziness your brain goes through after you've been in a really stressful situation. So we have this really awesome once fired 50 cal artillery round turned into a bottle cap. It's painted all red.
Not a bottle cap, bottle opener, dude.
Bottle opener.
Yeah,
Excuse
bottle
me.
opener. 50
I
caliber
always
bottle
have these
opener.
hang-ups.
It's
but-
all good.
Yeah, it's a bottle opener. It's a 50 cal artillery round. It's got some gold imprinting on it for it's the Marine Corps logo, and then 24K Kenny Smith. Love shouting out to his cause, and we're also able to personally monogram it at PETM Podcast. It's really cool. I've used it a couple of times. It actually preserves bottle caps really well for those that are weird like me and eventually want to make a bottle cap bar. You don't want the caps to be bent up. Well, this bottle cap or this bottle opener does a really good job of preserving the cap. So get you one. I think you can get it for about $24. There's a Facebook page that I'm sure we've shouted out to. And 20% of that goes to Kenny's race team and his promotion opportunity to help raise money for veterans suffering from PTS.
This thing's for real, man. I mean, it ain't. We were talking about earlier. The name is etched in there, painted and everything, and it's been fired. There's a little dent in the side. I just felt of it.
The
you
primer
can see where the
cap
pin
has a
has hit the
firing
cap.
pin
Yeah.
mark. Yeah,
It's really cool, and it's got heft. So shout out to Kenny. That thing is really neat, and excited to have it on the podcast here. We got a few. We actually have something that we haven't played in a long time on the podcast. Is this sound right here?
We're going to go ahead and...
I may have...
Oh, I forgot about the
I
Duke's
may
leg.
have blown the speakers out on that
Did
one.
we just blow everybody up? We're going to try to get... So one of the new focus of the show is we're going to try to get into the NASCAR stuff as fast as we can so we don't chase people away. Bleep ups for me. How are you going to be a Casey Kane fan and not know which years were his good years and which years were his bad years?
Well, it'll probably be the same type of Casey Kane fan that doesn't call you out on it live on the show, but who knows?
Well, for sure. So I think I said I mistakenly said it was either 07 or 09 when Casey had good or bad years, and actually I specifically said that 2008 was a bad year for Casey. He actually won 2 races that year.
Ain't
So
bad.
my apologies. As a fan, I shall do better.
He won 1/18 of the races that season, dude. Come on.
I know. That's actually a decent percentage, too. That's almost 10%.
Yeah. Well, talk to somebody like Kyle Busch, who's all over the place. If you take Kyle Busch last year, I don't know. The math's going crazy in my head. Let's get to NASCAR, though. There's a lot to talk about, man.
For sure. And
I don't even know what to say.
Let me stop you just a second.
Okay.
And I'm not going to prevent you from talking about NASCAR because that's what we're doing next. But the thing that the folks that are listening and will potentially watch need to understand is we do just enough research to enjoy the show. We don't do enough to be media. We're not media. We're having fun. We're fans. We're giving an opinion. We know a lot because we pay a lot of attention. So let's go right into media weeks. Toyota Tuesday.
Toyota Tuesday. We have some new announcements coming from on high. Faux show. So let's see if let's take one at a time. I think first things first, new chase formats that have been announced for XFinity and Camping World Trucks series races, or series, I should say. So the similar style, I think there's there's fewer races in the respective chases.
Right.
And there are fewer drivers. Isn't there top 12, or is it top 10? It don't matter. I can't remember the whole numbers and all that. This was previewed,
I think it's 12 for Xfinity and 10 for trucks.
Yeah, so this was previewed. If you remember, there was that fan council survey that got leaked, and us both being fan council members, we didn't want to say anything about it.
It was a beta release.
Right. It got leaked onto the internet, so we talked about what got leaked and all that. But this was part of that. What was leaked into that, and it looks like this is a change that I guess fans reacted positively to, but I think what people have really been scratching their heads over the most is there is a lot of parity between let's go into the trucks, between the top 8 drivers and the next X number of drivers.
It may not even be 8, but
it might be 5.
To your point, basically in the top 3, 4, or 5 race teams in the trucks, you have a tremendous amount of parity. Mm-hmm. And then when you do a season-long point system, you do end up at the end maybe potentially having someone like Eric Jones run away with it. But then like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th might all be within 40 points or something, or 50 points. And the same thing in Xfinity. You had 9 cars, actually. You had 9 that were competitive teams.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't necessarily go into the final race with a chance to win, but they went into the championship season, which we would definitely call the fall, starting in September, with a shot at it. Like if you're running well enough that if you put a win together or 2, you put some top 5s together, like next thing you know, you're right there. You have a chance at the trophy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you extend that thing to 10 or 12 drivers, you're talking about, and I got real specific on Twitter.
I remember seeing that.
The 12th place driver in the Xfinity series, if he or she had won the final 7 races, which we're talking about a 7-race format for Xfinity series with 2 knockout rounds and 4 people eligible in the last race, if the 12th place driver had won all 7 of those races, they would still have been an entire race worth of points behind who eventually won, which was Chris Buescher.
Wow.
Or who was Chris Buescher. So let's be real careful what we're doing by including that many teams.
Right. I think I saw something about the 12th place driver had, this may be a mistake we made next week, but it was something like one top 5 for the entire season, including the last 10 races.
No, you're right. So I did some more math, and you got Ryan Reed, and you had 2 other drivers that will remain nameless only because I can't remember them right now. They had 6 top 5s between the 3 of them in 33 races. One was a plate race win, and there were 3 top 5s. So you had 4 top 5s out of a potential 99 races, and those guys would all be eligible for an Xfinity chase if it played out the same way this year as it did last year.
Yeah.
Is that really what we want?
Yeah, it's a little weird. Now I'll say this: I think in the end it's all going to shake out because that 12th place driver is still going to be a 12th place driver, and a 12th place driver in the Xfinity series is like a 25th place driver in Cup.
Right, and never mind the fact that every single Xfinity race, and for positive angle, I'll never spin this negatively. Every single Xfinity race is going to have between 6 and 10 full-time competitive Cup drivers driving a competitive car.
Right.
And that's because that's how the series works. We can do a whole show on that. I won't go any further. But you're right. If you finish 12th in points or 13th or 11th or 10th in the Xfinity series, it's really more like finishing 17th or 18th or 22nd.
Yeah.
Because the guys that are winning the races a lot of times are Cup drivers.
So I think it'll shake out by the time they do all the elimination rounds. The guys going into Homestead, the top 4 will be the right drivers. I think the part that gets me, there's something about winning that nationwide. Oh, I said it.
There it is. That'll happen. Usually it's me.
I know, right? There's some. Maybe it's that blue in your shirt that I'm seeing.
Could be.
It's in the hood or something.
Oh, it's in the
sleeve.
Yeah,
in the stripes there. The Xfinity series. There's something about the guys who win that and the guys who win the truck that show this is the next guy, to come up. This is the next team to watch out for. Whereas I think it just seems a little, we said it in the Cup series with this whole, with this style, that it kind of cheapens it a little bit. That, okay, well, it could be any one of these 4 guys, who knows? But it's not as, just doesn't mean as much to me now to win that. Like Buescher and especially Eric Jones, man, what he had to do at the end of the season last year to finish up like that. We actually had a good season last year in trucks. I don't see why we would have to change that.
I thought trucks was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got distracted by the fact that I think that the truck series was awesome, especially how competitive the racing was. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, what's the alternative? We're going to one of the alternatives now. Mm-hmm. We're going to see what happens when there's knockout rounds and all that stuff. But it's hard to understand how NASCAR, on the one hand, would tout that these are development series. We love our older drivers. We love that they win. We love the Matt Craftons of the world. We love the Timothy Peters of the world. But
Absolutely.
What we really want to see is Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. We want to see Eric Jones.
Mm-hmm.
We want to
see sliced bread.
This year it's Rico Abreu.
Abreu.
We're super excited.
Goosebumps, dude.
Yeah, we want to see it. We got Kyle Busch started in trucks. Carl Edwards started in trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Biffle started in trucks. Trucks is a great place for a young driver to start. Why are we so concerned with whatever weird ass finish we have for the series championship? We don't care about that. We want to see the race. We want to see the race where Eric Jones leaves Charlotte completely pissed off because Casey Kane figured out a way to keep the 00 Haas Automation truck in front of him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know how to get around him, even though my truck is way faster. You want to see that. You want to see a young driver struggle to pass a seasoned veteran because he'll learn from that. And he ends up winning the championship because of it. I guarantee you, if you got Eric Jones in a room by himself and said, look, we don't want you to poo-poo anybody, but you can say whatever you want, he'll go, Charlotte, how in the hell did I not beat Casey Kane?
Yeah.
What was he doing with that truck?
That was nuts. That was nuts. And we talked about it here on the podcast. we'll burn this whole topic into the ground if I just keep yammering on about it.
Or
But
set a dry Christmas tree on fire if we have to.
but it's just that for me. It's just kind of cheapens it. Imagine the scenario where Eric Jones dominates a season or something, and then gets into the playoffs, and somebody else wins a trophy, but the way I'm trying to say it in a way that
is his ever
it
diminished?
just means,
is his ever diminished in that
right?
respect?
Is it diminished at that point? Because he's looking from the outside in to the other series. He's looking at Xfinity. He's looking at Cup. In Cup, in Cup, if there's any saving grace to it, that's the pinnacle. You've won the thing. You're at the pinnacle. You get the trophy. Good for you. Better luck, everybody, next year. This guy, Eric Jones, I keep using him as the example, but if he dominates the whole season, then doesn't win the thing, well, what does that mean? Eric Jones still probably gets the ride in the next series. Why? Because everybody knows that he's the best, and they give him the ride. So what does it mean to have a championship then?
I don't know, and that's like the last thing you want to do. There's a couple of different things you don't want to diminish. You don't want to diminish winning a race, which NASCAR spent the last 5 years figuring out how to not do that.
Yep.
Because the perception as a fan was that, well, the way you've got the point system set up and the championship set up, we're not really sure whether drivers want to win or they want to finish third.
Yep.
And it's like, well, first of all, you're stupid because winning pays a lot more.
Well, and these guys are so
don't
driven.
get in a race car unless you want to win.
Right. They're so driven. Pardon the pun, I guess. But
yeah.
Winning is all they care about. They're not. It's not a. Well, we're out there to have a good points day. They say it. They say it after the race. Why? Because they didn't win.
Right. They only talk about points when they don't win.
Right.
Right. And every winner of a race where the points mattered says, well, we got as many points as we could get today.
That's for sure.
Whether it was 46, 47, or 48, we got as many points as we could get.
Right. So the other rule coming out of that is you already mentioned that mention about the Cup drivers driving in the lower series, but they won't be able to drive in the last race. So
I like
adds
that
a little
rule.
wrinkle to it. I like that. I wish they'd extend it, make it the whole chase. If you're gonna do it, that's tough to do because you're trying to draw crowds. You're trying to get people in, butts in the seats and eyeballs on the TV. But if you're going all in with this whole chase format, then that's what you've gone all in for to get eyeballs.
Well, so one of the things that I haven't understood since they said that you have to declare points for a particular series so that you don't interrupt the championship in the series that you don't care the most about.
I liked that rule.
I like the rule.
I like
the only problem I have with it is that your place in a series below you still counts.
Yeah,
air quotes.
Yep.
So if you finish fourth, the fifth place guy doesn't get fourth place points if he's an Xfinity or a truck driver.
Yep.
He gets fifth place points. So there's ghost points that go off and die somewhere. The other thing I don't understand is we've only been starting 41 Xfinity race cars all year in 2015. Somehow they earn the same amount of points to win as a Cup driver that starts 43. What's that about?
Yeah.
Trucks the same way. Like they only start between 31 and 34 or whatever it is. Trucks. Actually, I think it was only 31 this year. It used to be 36.
And how are these
But
guys?
they score the same. They start the point system the same way they do Cup, in that max points is 48. I got 3 bonus points for winning. I got a bonus point for leading a lap, which is an automatic bonus point. I don't know why it's not just 4 for winning the way they. And then you get the 1 if you lead the most laps. So the max points is 43 plus, I guess, 5 or whatever it is, 48. I'm not good at arithmetic, but why would in series where you start less cars, vehicles, trucks, why would you have the same point system? Like, I don't understand that. That makes sense.
It's a good question. I think that's last on a lot of people's minds, though.
I'm sure it
these
is.
things that are going on.
That just bothered me because I'm a math person.
Right.
But,
so, no, go ahead. Finish it off.
No, I think I was done. I think I said but, and I wanted you to go.
But let's talk about heat races.
Ooh, neat.
Neat.
Except for at Indy. Why in the worst cuss word you could imagine would you do a heat race at the slowest 2.5-mile track on Earth for stock cars?
So tell us what it's all about. I talked about the chase formats. This is the Dash for the Cash. Xfinity only on this one.
Right, it's a Dash for Cash thing. It harkens back to the 80s when they had the Winston Million deal.
Which was
where, like,
cool.
if you won, like, 4 of the 6 designated races or whatever it was, you won $1 million. Well, that's where $1 Million Bill Elliott was born, was because having won at Darlington and got the $1 million. So they have a Dash for Cash in the Xfinity series, which is a very similar thing. It's like who finishes in the top 10 at these 4 races, and then like the most top 10s you're in the last race. You could, if you finish in front of the other 3 guys, you're going to win $100,000. Okay, well. They got a great setup. They got Bristol, Dover, Richmond, and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Yep. One of these things is not like the other. I mean, I can't sing Sesame Street, but it's Sesame Street. What are we?
Yeah, it's 3-year-olds.
Are you kidding me?
Sing it.
Like, you can't do a heat race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's ridiculous.
Tell us what the story is. Like, what are they doing? You may not know exact lap numbers.
I mean, I think I do.
You probably
actually.
do.
I don't know the total lap numbers for Indy. I know it for Richmond.
Like five
it's going to be
10 laps.
Yeah, it should be. So for Richmond, it's like they're going to do the normal group qualifying thing.
Yep.
To set who gets to be the 40 cars that are in the heat races, and then just like the duels for Daytona and the Cup, it's like, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 through 40 runs the first race, and then all the evens run the second race.
Yep.
And they run 40 laps, and then that sets the order. So all 40 of those cars, if they survive the heat races,
right, that's a big deal.
are going to make going to make the feature. Just like we have in our Friday and Saturday night dirt and some asphalt races, your local stuff. Which is pretty cool. I like that we're doing it 4 times and not half the races, just to see where we go. And then we're going to have at Richmond, I know for sure, we're going to have a 140 lap feature race, which is pretty cool because at Richmond it's a 3/4 mile. I think average speed is around 130 miles an hour.
I can tell you in the rental car that I drove around, the average speed was about 80.
Yeah, right. And you probably upset your pace driver by backing off and getting into
definitely
it.
Sandbag that dude.
Always. Should have bumped him. Yeah, so, I mean, we're looking at, if they're turning, 21, 22 second laps, we're looking at a good 75 minutes of racing.
Yep.
With the potential for maybe 2 green flag stops.
Yep. I like this idea. I like this one. I think some people were against it. It's weird to me at Indy, like you said. Bristol, well, we're going to see it at Bristol, aren't we? Me and you're going to go to Bristol. We're going to watch it.
We'll be there.
It's
Bristol, August.
Yep. So we'll see how
we might have to figure out how to be in Richmond. I don't know how that works.
I hear you. I've been there recently anyway, so might as well get there again. I like it because for a few reasons. Number one, get some excitement built in the series. Number 2, I don't think it really cheapens the racing or anything. It doesn't cheapen a championship. To me, it doesn't really cheapen the racing. It's a different type of race that they're introducing. So whoever wins is even a more well-rounded race car driver. Because like you said, it's not at every track. It's just at these tracks that we're doing this.
Well, it's going to be ironic when we get into the discussion about the truck thing.
Yeah.
Because we're now talking, we want to stay with the heat races in the Xfinity series. What's going to be interesting is that, because you're right, it is all about managing tires, managing the car over the long run when you're doing heat races and then a feature.
Yeah.
Because you don't really, there's not as many chances to adjust or provide data, even though, obviously the radio is going back and forth all race long, but it just doesn't, it only feels like, okay, maybe you got 2 shots to change the car over the course of I think what's going to boil down to 300 miles worth of racing. Maybe not even 300 miles, 250 miles probably for Xfinity. So you don't have very many times to make adjustments on the car. So it's all about the driver going, I have to make this thing last.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to do things like, okay, awesome, I won my heat race, so I'm either starting first or second by a flip of a coin.
Is that how they're doing it?
I think so. I mean, it's like it's going to be based on how you qualify, which means it's not really a flip of a coin.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
If you qualify first, you're going to be sitting pole in the odd number heat race, and if you qualify
so
second,
the odds are
you're
the
pole,
highest, et cetera.
Yeah, on the second heat race. But it's still somewhat of a flip of the coin in a little bit in terms of like, how hard do I want to race my heat race to keep a starting position for the feature?
Do you get to change cars or anything? What's the or change tires or change? What do you get to do?
No, I think you get to change tires, but you definitely don't get to change cars.
Right, I'm
People
just throwing
pissed.
stuff out there.
No, you're lobbing softballs because you know it already. The information already exists. If you wreck in a heat race, peace.
You done.
So how about just don't wreck?
Right. Do you think it's less of a draw for me as a fan to watch? And people say I only tune in the last 20 laps of the race anyway. Should I only tune in the last 100 laps now when they do the feature?
No, absolutely not. Because it's new and different, and we're only doing it 4 out of 32 races or 33. Watch the whole damn thing. Watch the whole show.
Yep.
Because
I agree with you there.
It's different. It's neat.
I think, too, one thing that NASCAR's got to get right is, which I think they have the ability to because they've done a lot of these different, like, do a little bit of racing and then stop and do a little bit of racing. As long as they're on their timetable, too, if they've got half an hour between the heats, you're going to lose people. But if you can just get that next green flag, hey, get those folks going as the others are pulling in pit lane, let's go, let's do this. Now we got excitement. We've got nonstop action.
I agree. As soon as you have all of the scoring monitors saying the same thing about heat number 1, heat number 2 rolls hot.
Right.
3 parade laps, giddy up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're fans, except for the Indy thing. Again, the Indy is 2 miles long. And
there is not a vehicle, structure, or platform where heat racing works at a 2.5-mile rectangular flat track that barely even works for the original technology it was designed for.
Right.
There aren't very many. The only reason why the Indy 500 is competitive now is because they did what NASCAR did to plate races 20 years ago.
Right.
Is to make the car following the leader be faster because of aero dependency.
What I would say is that they are trying to make the Indy race a little more compelling.
It was compelling the last couple years.
That's a good point.
But how, though? What, like, if you're a science person or an engineering person, are you like, oh, man, I enjoyed watching this, but how do they do it? They deliberately slowed down the leader.
Mm-hmm.
How in the hell is that racing?
I don't know. I don't know. That's like Mario Kart stuff,
Yeah, it's like ketchup. It's the ketchup button.
They got the
ketchup algorithm
shell, and they're
it's the ketchup algorithm.
Let's talk about trucks, man. And I think I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
After sleeping,
I've been waiting for a topic that maybe we would vehemently disagree on because I think
I'm not going to be vehement because
no. I mean, I'm not cussing each other, but I mean, like, I think
you want to hear both
the people
sides.
that actually listen to this podcast, and maybe the ones that watch on Periscope, they're probably waiting for us to run across a topic where we're like, we have to agree to disagree, and we can intelligently argue the reason why we sit in the seat that we choose to sit in.
That's right. So let's talk about what it is. We call it the shot clock.
I called it the shot clock for sure.
Yeah, it is a 20-minute caution clock, if you will. So race starts and the timer starts. There will be a caution either on the track or once that clock reaches 0.
Correct.
They're going to throw the caution flag. This does not apply to Eldora. so they're not doing it at the dirt track.
Which already has heat racing, the only truck race that has heat racing.
They are not doing it for the last 20 laps of the race.
On short to medium tracks.
How about long track?
It's 10 at Pocono and the road course, Ohio, Mid-Ohio Motorsports.
So that's really the rules. Now, I saw that, and I thought, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Then, I slept for 2 nights.
Moi aussi.
Y yo también. So, when I woke up after 2 days, my head was a little clearer, and I kind of went, you know what? Not that, see, again, this is where I'm like hedging my bet or whatever you want to call it. Not that I'm a fan, but I can do this. I think I'm okay with this. And so let's hear what you got to say first before I get into it, because I don't want to try to convince you.
I am...
Don't agree with me, dang it.
No, I feel like I'm very balanced on both sides of the equation in terms of how to build a scientific argument as far as why it's good or why it's bad.
Yep.
So I'll start with why I think it's good. Why I think it's good is it's pretty obvious.
Don't burn my arguments, but
I might.
No, it's fine.
It's pretty obvious to me based on the decisions that NASCAR and Brian France and Steve O'Donnell and all the cronies that are making decisions.
We'll be invited up there.
It's obvious to me that outside of the Sprint Cup division of racing, they want to reduce the number of green flag pit stops because they think that will reduce the cost of entry to the sport.
Okay.
100% correct. If you don't have to have a world-class pit crew to pit a car or a truck under a green flag or under pit stop, it's more important that you get everything right.
Yep.
Then that reduces the cost of owning a team. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll stop there. But the negative side for me as a fan, what I say about having a stop clock or a caution clock is you are artificially impacting the outcome of a race for no other reason than to sell commercials and for your own personal benefit, even though you're doing it in a time space, in a place, a media space that you don't really have any competition. Like you either have people that watch Friday night or Friday afternoon truck races, or you do not. Like you're not losing to another sport.
Right.
You have people that love NASCAR and watch. Like you're not losing eyeballs.
Yep.
So why do you need this extra thing for people to pay attention? Besides, and the trucks, they wreck all the friggin' time. They wreck a lot because these are kids learn how to race, and they're old guys that are racing bad trucks, and I mean, but it's hilarious. It's a great series. It's super entertaining because of that. You have new guys.
It's usually Friday night. I mean, it's Friday night.
That's in on June 12th, and you're like, what am I doing on Friday night? Well, the Braves are on, and there's truck racing.
That's
cool.
Right.
I'm going to watch both of those things.
Yep. You can show how we're going out to the clubs.
And like on FS1, is anybody really are they really selling commercials? Or is that just a partnership between we do Cup on the broadcast channel and we sell a boatload of commercials for that because Cup garners the 4.5 to almost 6 rating typically during the season where they don't have anybody to compete with on Sunday afternoon. So the trucks is just kind of like they're throwing us a bone, the fan.
Yeah.
Throw us a bone. Guess what? You know what the bone I didn't ask for was? A shot clock. I didn't ask for that.
Right.
Trucks is awesome without it.
Here's what I got to say after I slept on it for a while. Number one, the truck series, this is where we throw stuff on the wall and see what sticks. I was neutral, but in the end, I thought it was an interesting experiment when they did the whole, if you remember, they did the pit stops where during a trip down pit lane, you can change tires or you can fill up the gas, but you can't do both. You remember that from a few years back?
They
I thought
killed that after one race.
After one season.
Was it one season?
Yeah, they ran a season of that.
That's right. That was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You're right.
Again,
wow, I can't believe how quickly I forgot that.
Right. Not that I think that, oh, wow, that's great. They should apply that to Cup. But again, just throwing something at the wall, see what sticks. Make these guys, the number two kind of along
But
with
it's
that.
not a thinking thing,
Make
though.
these
That
guys-
was about money spent on a pit crew.
I get that part too, but it made it compelling. I thought that was a compelling part of what they had to do and part of the strategy.
Sure.
Of sometimes they can just take gas and just not take tires, and now they are in a better position. It's just like not pitting, except you pitted once instead of twice or whatever.
Yeah.
Point is, I like that they're doing this in trucks to see, kind of what it looks like.
It's a beta test function.
Right. Number 2 or 3, whatever number I'm on.
Doesn't matter. 9.
That I like. Yeah,
Number
C.
9. Roman numeral 50.
Right.
Which
L.
America apparently doesn't understand.
Yeah, we're done with those. We're not going to do LI next year, so we're done. It's 51 next year. So.
Lee?
Yeah, right. Super Bowl Lee? Who's Lee? Sounds foreign.
That's another example of how stupid America got. All right, continue. Let's talk about trucks.
Number 2, we're going to have to see how FS1 or whoever's hosting it at the time does this. But in my opinion, we should never have commercials during a green flag stop ever again. Or I should say we should never have commercials during green flag ever again.
Now, that is a side of it that I want to see because I was not vocal. I was literary. I don't know. What
Literally vocal.
My fingers
the,
were vocal on Twitter
They
about.
call it an armchair warrior.
Yeah, the first time that we see like the second or third commercial break during a 20-minute stop watch, that's when people are going to freak out. Like your traditional NASCAR fans are going to go, WTF.
Right.
Like you already know when you're going to get to run 5 minutes of commercials. Because when they stop,
at most 20 minutes. At the most is 20 minutes.
Absolute most. Well, and you and I have been very critical about NASCAR, whether it's on Fox or NBC or TNT or whoever, ESPN, whoever it was, we run 6 minutes under green after the start of a race.
Yep.
And they cut to commercial for 3.5 minutes, and you're like, really?
Right.
Like
so far, 33% of this race has been under commercial.
Right. So if an NFL football game, maybe this doesn't happen, but if an NFL football game, perhaps there is a team that runs 6 or 7 plays in a row where nobody goes out of bounds and there's not a penalty. Mm-hmm. That happens. Actually, that happens quite a lot in the NFL.
Yep.
Where there's no penalties. The out of bounds thing maybe doesn't, but there's no penalties. So you're just going to cut away,
right,
and go to commercial while they're going to run a play, like
right.
I mean, I don't know how much money is involved. We obviously know the NFL and college football commands a tremendous amount of TV money. I'm not asking for NASCAR to command that amount of money, but also flipping a coin as a soccer fan. Somehow or another, ESPN, Fox Sports, and NBC have all managed to figure out how to broadcast almost 45 minutes guaranteed, but all the way up to 51 or 52 minutes with extra time, added time by the referee, with no commercials, but doing side piece stuff.
Yep.
Or broadcast on-field stuff and make that work. Okay, so I know that's a much smaller audience than the NFL or college football, but it's not that smaller of an audience for NASCAR.
Yeah, so point is, I think we should have much better timing around commercial breaks with this, because how many times, especially in trucks, and especially, I ain't going to name names, but TNT would go to commercial, like you said, 6 minutes into the race, especially in trucks and stuff. So to almost guarantee, hopefully, now, like you said,
trucks has been exclusive on speed and FS1 for about a decade, but
okay, no, that was on TNT for the.
I wasn't trying to crap
series.
on
it's all good.
your opinion.
Well, they did it to Speed would do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, no. Yeah, how many times do we come back from a commercial break with 77 wrecked trucks and we only started with 36?
Right.
I'm like, what the heck happened?
Yeah, they hit a few of the
Like
the jet
somebody,
drivers.
well, while they were going through turn 2, somebody built a fire hydrant in turn 4 and everybody's destroyed.
Right.
Like, what? How did that happen in the 2.5 minute commercial that you
Right.
ran?
Right. So I think that's good. And I think in the end, like we said, these guys are causing enough cautions on their own that I don't think it's going to be as effective at changing the
As interruptive.
yeah. or whatever as it. So I'm willing to give this one a chance. I'm now, after having slept on it, I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with this. My problem though is that what if this works out really well and then it goes to Cup? Now I'm changing my tune. And the only reason I'm endorsing this right now is because it's trucks.
Well, so a couple things.
Yep.
I'll lead with what our guy
Yep.
said was why this wouldn't work in Cup. Majority of significant passes that don't happen on the restart happen when the tires are old.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it wouldn't work.
Well, you gotta have old tires. That's a whole strategy thing. I mean, that's the thing.
So that was number one. Number two, I'm trying my best to forget. So I'm fishing, and I'm just kind of talking. But I just don't. I'm willing to give it a go in trucks and see how it goes. I will watch. My concern is one of the things that I think is most integral part of NASCAR National Touring Series racing is green flag pit stops. That to me is so important. That's what makes it different from every weekend series, every Friday night, Saturday night series. The thing that they don't have to do is a green flag pit stop.
Mm-hmm.
Get on pit road, have a pit crew do their stuff, get off pit road, get back up to speed.
Yeah. Well, like we've been saying, I'm willing to give it a try at this point. I know Brian France said give it a try, and when he said it, I was still mad, and I was going, you know what, screw you. I've given you a try on all this other stuff. I don't care.
After what Tony Stewart said about Brian France, I lost even more respect for that guy.
I've got it written down in the show notes. Let's just go to that.
Let's go.
Tony, about 4.5 minutes.
I almost like to play his 4 minutes. I know we shouldn't.
Yeah, 4 minutes. Y'all got to go.
It was
find
on
that.
Sirius.
I tweeted it.
It was Godfather Moody's. What's his first name? Godfather Moody's Sirius XM show. Neither one of us subscribe to Sirius XM, but every now and again we get to rent a car that's got it, and they're doing 24 hours of NASCAR. And Godfather Moody's got a show. He had Tony on and had Tony talk as calm as you ever would hear Tony talk about
with
what
the most
makes
vicious
him mad about Brian France. And like he went at him, and he went at him in such a docile manner that nobody's going to be upset at Tony tomorrow.
Yeah, you can't respond with
Tony says Tony
fervor.
stuff like real good. Not angry Tony, but smart Tony.
Right. That was smart, Tony. Some other drivers had some news this week. Kyle Busch, did you see the hardware tweet?
I saw the hardware tweet. Also saw what he's not going to do.
So I'll talk about the hardware tweet real quick. So he tweeted out a picture. Y'all got to go find it. It's kind of neat. I thought it was neat. And he said, here's the hardware that helped me
Former chunks of his body.
Yeah, here's the hardware that helped me get this hardware. And the two pieces of hardware, one was obviously the Sprint Cup, and the other was a whole pile of pins and needles and braces that all came out of his knee while he was, or his leg, I should say his foot and his leg. While he was recovering and everything. So, no, it's not a bloody mess or nothing. He cleaned them, or the doctor, whoever, cleaned them all up. So it's just kind of
I'm sure they were autoclaved.
Yeah, there's a little pile of screws and a Sprint Cup next to it. I thought that was a creative tweet. I liked it.
I liked it a bunch, especially as someone who has undergone a knee surgery, and actually asked if I could watch my knee surgery happen, but apparently there's too much brain stimulation to watching your knee be dismantled that could potentially harm their efforts. There's not enough sedative to eliminate your knee-jerk reaction, so you have to be asleep. So I did not get to watch my ACL repair, but I thought it was really cool. Because of having been through some crazy wild, tore my stuff up and try to recover from it deal, I have this unique, heartfelt respect for these guys that come back from surgery and have these weird, crazy injuries and they end up being still the most successful people on earth at what they do. And it's like, how do you not just...
Yeah, golf clap. What was the other Kyle Busch thing?
The other Kyle Busch thing was his wife and his owner have mandated that he not drive a restrictor plate race in any series but Cup.
Wow.
Which is a very, very underhanded way of saying that the most dangerous racing that Kyle Busch could participate in is restrictor plate racing in series that aren't the Cup.
Well, it's the one that tore his leg up, so
I mean,
hard to argue against that.
This isn't a grandstand. This isn't I've found something amazing no one else knew. I just don't understand why we NASCAR people don't say restrictor plate racing as it is today is dangerous as hell.
And like we've talked about many times before, a little bit on the boring side, in my opinion, for at least the first 180 laps.
How is it exciting for the first 80% of the laps?
Yeah, we've talked about it. We won't go down that road in the late stage of this podcast.
Goodness.
But
yeah.
Let's see. We said it in the pre-show. Rico Abreu gets a full ride in the trucks this year.
How cool is that?
That is
Thor
so
Sport,
cool.
Good on you. I hate it that Johnny Sauter maybe had to leave the number 98. I don't know what the circumstances are. There are always strange circumstances in racing. It's such a volatile sport in a lot of ways. When you get outside the top 20 cars in the Cup Series, it starts to get really weird. But I am fascinated by what Ricky Abreu might do in the Truck Series in the 98 for Thor Sport, which we know is a winning truck, and he's a winning driver. People know who he is. Johnny Sauter, cool, man. The guy drove anonymously in the Cup Series. Before that, he was in, I think he ran some Busch races, ran some truck races way back in the day when we still called those things that. But, Rico Abreu is on us right now.
Right.
Dude is a winner. He's doing, hit the cushion, two wheels, spin around, crazy non-wing sprint car stuff at the Chili Bowl in Tulsa, which, by the way, NASCAR pays a boatload of attention to. Because how many NASCAR drivers have raced in the Chili Bowl?
Just go look at the Wikipedia.
It's a bunch.
It's kind of crazy. Greg Biffle had some news this week, which I thought was interesting. He had said
the Biffle missile is the Biffle landing platform.
the Biffle rocking chair. He said, at least in an interview, and I have to imagine that it was blown out of proportion from one soundbite or something. But regardless, he still said every day he thinks about retirement. And I think I had emailed or texted with you and said, man, if you're thinking about retirement every day, it's probably about time for retirement.
Well, I don't want to hit Biffle too hard.
It's not hit, and I don't mean that against Biffle. Race all you want to race.
No,
but your mind's got to be in this thing.
I'm stepping to a different place to start a conversation. You're interrupting me, Rusty.
That's what I do. This is a podcast.
I don't really want to kick Biffle in his current state, but the thing I do want to kick, or at least poke, is Roush Fenway. Is your senior driver, your driver that has had the most success, the one that should be the leader, is having conversations potentially about retirement while you are in the biggest slump of the modern era. Mm-hmm. And in the modern era, I would say is since 2001.
Sure.
Our most modern era.
Sure.
And so you're not like how are you managing that if you're Roush PR? How are you managing that if you're Roush Engineering? Like, our cars need to get better now. Oh, well, you have Biff who's like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll go fly helicopters in the backyard. Helicopters in the
I like helicars.
Wow. Helicars. Helicopters in the backyard at my, where he's Spokane, Washington, wherever the hell he's from. And he's got his dune cars. He loves doing that. Like, there's so many things Biff loves to do that doesn't have anything to do with racing sprint cup cars. Like, and that's the guy that's supposed to be your leader.
Right.
So what Stenhouse? What's he going to do? Bane's done nothing except when
he's Daytona 500 champion.
Daytona 500.
Trevor Bane.
Like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I mean, he's like the guy that won Talladega when everybody boycotted and said the tires suck. I'm going home. And Joe Blow won the race. And everybody's like, cool.
Yeah, good for you.
Never see again. Like, what are we going to do?
It's a good question. Roush has got to start. I think Roush has got to start signing somebody. I mean, if Biffle says he's going to retire, I think I'd go ahead and help him out with that.
They're already trying. They're building Chris Buescher's car. They're going to hand it over to Front Row Motorsports, and the Front Row Motorsports is going to crew chief it and put their wrap on it.
Yeah,
but the car is going to be completely built head to toe by Roush.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's weird. If that's what you thought would be success for Chris Buescher, why wouldn't you just start a fourth team?
Yeah.
And hire those guys away and pay them more money. Like, we know how college football and the NFL works. It goes, oh, I like you and I like what you do. I think you do a good job. You were making $350? Here's $700.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you leave the University of Memphis and you go to Auburn.
Yeah.
Or you leave Appalachian State and you go to University of Georgia.
Yeah.
Because they can afford to double your salary. Why wouldn't Roush do that if they really believed in Chris Buescher?
Right. It's a good question. Let's talk about Truex. Rounded out with Truex here.
How awesome.
Isn't that neat?
How awesome. And I've got all kinds of history. I'm going to drop knowledge on you.
Drop some knowledge.
Yeah. So this is so cool. I mean, I'm not super stoked that Truex is going back to Toyota. I get it. I think it's strange considering how good a relationship that Furniture Row had with Richard Childress, and they were winning, like they won a race. Mm-hmm. They were finishing very well. They were having good stuffs. Why would you? Toyota wanted Martin Truex so bad. Evidently, they were ready to cough up the amount of cash to make Furniture Row go, I love you, Richard, but as good as your stuff was, we got to go over here. How about Bass Pro Shops coming back on for 9 races, full sponsorship, primary sponsorship?
That's really neat. I'm loving that. So
I'm loving it.
I'm looking forward to the paint schemes. I'm looking forward to everything else. I like that he's getting the sponsorship. I mean, and look what he did last year, and now he's reaping the benefits of it. I really like seeing that too in this sport that has had trouble with filling out sponsorship.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I have enjoyed as fans would do, because we don't understand the perils and the tribulations of competition. We tend to make fun of situations that offer up an opportunity for humor, but I think it's awesome that Bass Pro has been willing to commit back to Martin Truex, and Toyota going, hey, the stuff we did over at Michael Waltrip, we're not concerned about all the other random things that nobody wants to talk about. We want Toyota on Martin Truex's car. We want Martin Truex driving a Toyota. How do we figure that out?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, we need Bass Pro and we need Furniture Row to figure all this out. And they did. And it's really cool. I mean, if you look back to like 2004 or 2005, when Martin Truex was like Dale Jr.'s protege and racing at Chance 2 Motorsports, which was Teresa's Busch Series entry at the time. It was like a DEI spinoff, kind of like Junior Motorsports is like a Hendrick affiliate. Like you see, if Junior's got a driver that ends up doing well, he's going to get into the Hendrick fold. Chase Elliott. That's the way Chance 2 was then. And Martin Truex won 2 straight Busch Series championships in 04 and 05 in the 08 black Bass Pro Shops Chance 2 Chevrolet. So it's a cool there's a lot of history stuff going on.
It's neat. Let's start closing this thing out, man. And let's close it out in the way at the beginning I said we're kind of shaking this thing up a little bit. So we're starting to do shout-outs right at the end of the show. Keep y'all listening so you can hear yourself called out, or just fast forward to this part. I don't care, but
yeah, we don't do commercials at this point, so but our commercials are going to be like shout-outs at the end of the show.
Right, here goes. So shout-out. Well,
we love our screaming goat.
I think our first shout-out. Hey, you know what I'm going to say? Shout-out to all of our followers right now. Once again, Sherwin put out the challenge on Twitter and to us. 500 followers on Twitter by the Daytona 500, 500 for the 500. I think as of the beginning of this podcast, we were at 468.
We still are 468.
A number that I said it last week I didn't think would be attainable, and I thought was a silly idea. Not silly. I shouldn't bemoan or belittle or whatever that. But I thought, boy, that's going to be a tough deal.
It's more than we thought we'd be able to figure out. For sure.
So appreciate every one of you. Hey, some new exciting news with the Over the Wall Race guys. So it's at Over the Wall Race. That's Cliff Doherty and Kathy Brown. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so make sure I get Kathy's deal right here. But, yeah, I mean, we've been interacting the last half week or so, and they also have a fan podcast. They started during the chase, and they did a weekly deal. I think they did like 12 or 15 of them.
Cool.
And I think they decided that they would take a break during the off season, which one of the things I wanted to mention when we started this thing was we've now done 5 podcasts when there was no new there was no new NASCAR information to share, but we managed to fight our way through it, and I feel very proud about that.
For sure.
We now had NASCAR news today. Obviously, we had recap information from the championship
first
weekend,
one, but still.
But we've had some interaction with the OverTheWallRacing.com podcast. Absolutely go there. They are also on iTunes, like we are. The only podcast that I listened to was the recap of Homestead. I really enjoyed it. I mean, they talked. Kathy is an official NASCAR media member,
right?
So she writes about NASCAR, and Cliff. He's kind of the host. It's kind of like us. It's like he's the IT guy and like has all the equipment, and then and Kathy calls in, but she's the one with has the expended amount of information. Not that you don't. That's not a belittlement between us.
I get it.
But she's the one that's got like, I was at Phoenix. I was in the press box at Phoenix. This is the things I saw, I heard, and I felt, and it's a really cool thing. And we're going to do a podcast with them at some point. I think we're going to do like a pre-run off air where we figure out like how all the personalities combine and how
4 of us in the room.
How we step. Yeah, 4 of us in the 2 of us on one side of the phone and 2 on the other because they're on the West Coast, which is cool. But we're going to do that. So that's going to come at y'all probably in the next couple weeks. Would imagine.
Hopefully so. I got some travel coming up.
Yeah.
I'm going to the motherland again. Out to,
you never know when I'm going to North Carolina. That could happen overnight.
True.
Having to hop in a car, but yeah.
Y'all, we got some exciting stuff coming up on top of all that. Previewing 3 things. The first thing Sherwin's already talked about, doing some sort of collaboration with these folks. It sounds like a really cool idea. And see what we can do. Hopefully have them on this podcast. We'll jump on their podcast. We'll have some fun. Second thing, these 3 things are going to get a little more and more vague. We've given you something.
There's
that's
an escalation
there.
In excitement, but also an escalation in vagueness.
Right. Yeah. Direct correlation. The second thing, we've been contacted by some, I would say, people who are very involved in the sport itself. We'll say drivers. Now, we're not talking about Dale Earnhardt Jr. quite yet, but for a small-time podcast like us, we're looking at some people that I would just be beside myself if we get some of these folks on and talking NASCAR.
Yeah.
So
to get specific, we're going to have a chance to interview on our podcast a driver that has made 50 NASCAR starts.
Wow.
Between the 3 series. And we're trying to calm our nerves and not be fanboys.
Well, I'm going to be
and
a fanboy.
We promise to deliver you a podcast that you would want to hear.
We won't ask the same question everybody else asks, that's for sure.
2 fans interviewing a driver, and so that's in the cards. And then what's the next thing?
Third thing, most vague, but I will say some really exciting possibilities for the future of the PETM podcast.
Yeah,
and I'm going to leave it at that. But y'all, if you're following with us now, you're on the ground floor. We appreciate and we love every one of you. And some really cool stuff. We've been contacted by some people about the future of the whole deal, and I think we can start looking forward to that. I don't know. I'm saying a lot right there.
Yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen. One of the great things when you study about how to get better about radio is eliminating from your conversation,
when you're dumbfounded,
which is extremely hard. It's extremely hard to do.
You're right.
So
we got the G-Chat. Tell them about the G-Chat.
We do have the G-Chat. We got the PETM podcast at gmail.com. You can G-Chat us there.
Follow me at Tailgate Mayor, and you're at?
I'm at P-R-E, Game, G-A-M-E-E-N-G, Engineer.
And we'll talk to y'all next week. Follow us on Twitter. Get us to 500 by the 500 at PETM Podcast. We'll talk to y'all next time.
Huge shout out to the 468 followers of the podcast. Thank you very much. Thank y'all. Thumbs up.